Well, it's been 3 years since the last part. Switch version, the game didn't even exist when I made the last part. Okay, well, whatever. Getting back to it at least. Okay, so I want to try to go through the characters a bit quicker this time, since most are generally good, and most people know that the characters are generally good. If you want to know how I'm rating the characters, bottom tier video is the first part of this series where I explain that. The first 4 or so minutes of that video explains how I'm going through it, so yeah. I do want to assure that this is still purely based on the Wii U version of the game. It's the one I have the most experience with, and it's the most challenging one, and because of that, I feel like it's the only one that really needs a tier list, since you can mostly get by with playing your favorites in the other versions. They aren't as strict as the Wii U version gets at times. Also, since it's been so long, have I changed the placements of any characters? Yes, I've moved 2 characters up, however, one of those characters was moved from high tier to top tier, and the other one was moved up within top tier itself. So the videos before now, I would say, are still accurate. So let's start it. Epona has some of the best mobility in the game. You are constantly moving while riding her. While there is a bit of a learning curve to getting her under control, you'll be juggling enemies while carrying them across the map with ease once you do get it. A lot of mobility in AoE leads to getting easy keep clears and a mostly safe playstyle. C1 is perhaps your most useful tool, especially the variant that uses your carrot meter. You only have 6 uses at a time, but this is fantastic for quick burst of damage, and it easily breaks gauges on both normal enemies and giant bosses. Okay, I have really considered making an entire 20-minute video discussing Sheik. I might still end up doing that later on, but for now I'll try to give the quickest summary I can. No, she does not have super effective damage against everyone in the game, and no, she is not the only character in the game that can spam dodge and be invincible forever. I've made 2 videos on that latter subject already. Her damage and range are both lacking, and damage will fall off even harder later on in the Wii U version, but she can still work. She's speedy enough, and keeping enemies in the air to juggle them isn't a problem for her. She can delete giant boss weak point gauges easily, but the weak point smash she performs after is definitely on the weaker end, meaning she might have to waste time to go through an entire extra cycle compared to some of the better characters. Water Shield falls off hard once you get to later levels. I did an example, and in this example, I took 9.5 hearts without the shield and 6.5 hearts of damage with the shield. This is a typical stage with a 10 heart damage requirement. I'm losing my A rank after the second hit, regardless if I'm using the shield or not. It doesn't even make a difference. There are times where it may let you take a single extra hit, but that still isn't anything exemplary, especially not anything worth putting her in top tier for alone. I think a lot of people see her as this unkillable character that has super effective damage against everyone in the game, and that's not at all what this character is. She can still be effective, but her effectiveness does get blown out of proportion way too often, I feel like. High tier, not top tier. This is a bit of a tricky weapon, but once you learn how to use it and get hasty also helps a lot when using this weapon, you'll be able to throw around large, powerful attacks non-stop. Huge AoEs means getting KOs is not a problem for her. Giant bosses fall to the string popularized by the rupee glitch, using C3, dodge canceling, using C1, and then just throwing in a few other weak hits. Other than enhanced C5, you don't have much mobility, but with the combination of attacks covering such a wide area and with Lana being invincible during her enhanced strong attacks, you can safely hide with your backs to the wall and just blast everything in front of you. For 1v1, your main option is going to be popping C1 over and over again. C1 keeps them in the air and does nice damage, and each of the summons has a use as well. Zongo can hold them into place, Manhandla can hold them in place even better, and it also drains health ridiculously quickly. Gomar and Argrok are mostly good for their enhanced C4 and C5s. Zant is very weird and also very effective. Generally, he's safe to either being very immobile or having large AoEs that also cover behind him, or in C3's case, you go up so high that most tanks can't even reach you in the first place. Being mobile and having large AoEs also lends itself nicely into racking up KOs. C1, C2, and C3 all melt giant boss weak point gauges ridiculously quickly, In 1v1s, he has multiple juggle options in C3 and C4 mainly. Managing your meter can be tricky at first, but once you understand it, he can tackle any mission with ease. He is fantastic at 1v1s, as most people already know. He doesn't need to position himself to avoid attacks or juggle enemies. He locks onto and positions the enemies to wherever he needs them to be. He can lock them in place, bring them closer, knock them away, or launch them into the air. And of course, having the darkness elemental effects just makes those juggles all the more painful once he's targeting a single enemy. C4 and C5 have enough range to be nice enough at racking up KOs, not the best, but more than serviceable. Giant bosses also easily fall as long as you have your red string attached to them. However, he is only really able to handle one major enemy at a time. If he gets overwhelmed, he doesn't have many save options to handle the entire crowd. Still, he can use his red string to single out an enemy, like knock them forward with C2 and just separate them, pull them out, work on them. Then after he's killed that enemy, he just goes on to the next enemy and you can just go through like that. Large, powerful attacks. C4 and C6 are going to be your most used attacks in most scenarios, thanks to their range, damage, and safety. C6 keeps you mobile, and C4 has enough range that you can stand really far back and just blast anything that you need to. C1 is really unique for quick burst of high damage, and it pops weak point gauges instantly. The meter for it also fills in a short amount of time, so you'll be able to use this often, thankfully. Giant bosses are her weakest area, as she usually needs C1 fully charged to empty their weak point gauges in one go, and she probably will have to go through their gauges at least twice, but she performs well enough in every other area that she still makes high tier. They're pretty great at everything, no more and no less. Quick constant projectile spam makes getting KOs easily and helps them to be mostly safe in most situations. For 1v1, she can get her targets into the air easily with either C2 or C4, then use strong attack to deal ridiculous damage to everything around her before following. But this does leave her vulnerable if either attack misses. Mid or strong attack after using C2 or C4 is also fantastic at completely melting giant boss point gauges. She's nice at most aspects, she doesn't quite have a unique trait that puts her over the top into the top tier. He's the quickest and most nimble Link, but he doesn't sacrifice any power for that speed. He can still hit surprisingly hard. Spamming C1 to constantly jump up and then crash down is really nice to get KOs. Thanks to his speed and usually being mobile, he is a character that can avoid getting hit very easily. In 1v1s, he has an infinite, either dodging the side in C1, repeating that over and over again, and even beyond that, he has plenty of ways of getting throws through the air through either C2, C4, or C5. C3 and C5 are his best options for giant bosses, but he can lack there a bit. Still, everything else about him is superb, so high tier it is. Bunny Boy has a really great kit. C4 is nice for crowds, and it deletes every giant boss weak point gauge as long as you have hasty equipped. Fully charged C1 is perfect for getting enemies in the air for juggles during 1v1s, not to mention it also breaks shields. And he's able to keep foes in the air for a while as well, with C2 being able to stall for 3 uses, and then you can end with C5. He isn't the safest character ever due to not being too mobile or having any coverage behind him, but he is able to keep whatever is in front of you stuck in the air, and that is good enough in most cases. He's generally another solid character. His damage output is pretty nice for a lightning character, so he feels a bit more on par with characters of other elements. He has plenty of ways getting enemies into the air and keeping them there. All of his attacks see this, and the sigil he does at the end of each one if you hold down the button is a really nice addition, as well to just stall the enemy and just keep them there. Giant bosses aren't a problem for him either. His range isn't superb, so it might take him slightly longer than average to clear a keep, but that shouldn't be a huge issue in most cases. And that's it for high tier. I kind of went through characters a bit quickly this time because I feel like if I made like a half-hour long video, it's mostly just me going to be saying this character's good, this character's good, this character's good, this character's good, because it's high tier and all these characters are good, and I feel like that could just get really stale really quickly, so I just kind of wanted to go through it a bit quicker than normal. But for top tier, I plan on going in depth on the characters a bit better, especially because like they're good, but they also have this other unique trait that puts them way above everyone else, and that's why they are in top tier. Yeah, this video took way too long to come out. That's kind of, I guess, just what happens when I played this game too much and got burned out on it, and I've tried to make a few attempts to kind of get back into it, and it doesn't really stick, and I'm not really in the mood to be in the game right now, but yeah, I feel like I probably should have made this video years ago, so yeah, it's finally out of the way. Top tier, I'll start working on it soon, hopefully not in 2023. So yeah, that's it. Bye.